Okay, so the HTML doc type, the HTML document must start with this doc type declaration. It is an information to the browser about the document type to expect. For example, we have declared here the HTML5 document using this start, then exclamatory sign, doc type, and HTML. Actually, this is not a case sensitive one. Okay, so the next is, what if the browser does not support HTML5? Browser will simply ignore that tag. It won't throw any error. If you have wrapped some text in between that unsupported tag, it will just render that tag, render the text. Then WebSocket is a two-way communication technology for web applications which operates over a single socket and is exposed via JavaScript interface in a HTML5 compatible browser. For example, uh, to uh, work with a WebSocket, we'll create one function, suppose a WebSocket test function. Then we check the browser supports for a WebSocket or not. We'll use this uh, WebSocket string in a Windows. So this will check if the browser is supporting for a WebSocket or not. Then we'll open the WebSocket by using the new WebSocket. As we see here, we have declared one WS variable and we are calling new WebSocket by passing the URL to this constructor, WebSocket constructor. Then WebSocket open handler will register one handler for on open event. So and in this function we can inform user that the connection is successful with the WebSocket. Then we can send a message using the send method of WS variable, WebSocket variable. As we see here, ws.send, and we'll send that message. We'll receive the message using receive message handler. We actually receive the event. We can access the data property of that event. As we see here, we have registered on message handler and we are passing the event, and in that function we are getting the event dot data property. This data property will contain the messages from server. When the connection is get closed from server, so we will inform the user that connection is closed from WebSocket end, and we'll register one on close event for that. So this event will occur when the connection is closed from WebSocket. Then we as a developer can close the connection for a user using this close method of WebSocket. Okay, so the things to remember that: check the browser support a WebSocket in a window object, then open WebSocket, then write one handler for the successful connection. Then we can send a message using the send method. We can register the on message event handler to listen the message event from server. We can register one handler for connection close from server, and the last one is we can close the connection using close method. Okay, then we have web workers. Web workers is a JavaScript running in a background actually, so it won't affect the performance of the page. It will run in a background. To check the support for a web worker, we'll use type of web worker uh, is not undefined. So if it is not undefined, means our browser is supposed for web worker. So this is a type of worker. Then for working with the web workers, we'll create JavaScript external file. Suppose demo worker.js file. We'll create a web worker object in our main thread using the new worker constructor. Using new keyword, we'll create a web worker object and we'll pass the file path to create a web worker object. We can stop a web worker using the web worker dot terminate method. We will receive the data in a main thread from a worker file. For that, we'll register one handler for on message event. This event will have the data property, so we can access the data using this event.data property. Then we can send the data to we can send the data from worker file after computation done using the post message. As we see here, we can send the post message, we can call post message method. This will generate on message event in our main thread, and we can pass the computation result to the post message. Then we can send the data from main thread to a worker file using the worker objects post message. This post message data post message function will take an argument and will send this data from the main thread, and to receive this data in our worker will register event for message, as we see here on a message, and will get the event.data. So in this way we can access the data in our worker file which is sent from main thread. Then there are shared workers also in HTML5. Okay, then we have server sent event. This is a mechanism or technology which works as a one-way messaging. Server sent events allows a web page to get updates from server. So to creating the server sent event, we'll create an object of the event source by passing the server URL as we see here, and will register on message handler which will take as an event, and we will access the data passed from server using the event.data as you see here. Then we first we can check the event source, that is server sent events are supported in our browser or not. We can test it same as a type of event source not equal to undefined. Okay, then there are a couple of methods which will work for us in a server sent event on open. This will this is the event where it generates when the connection established with server. Then we have message. When we receive the message, we can listen using the on message handler. Then we have on error. If any errors occurred, we can listen to that error using this on error handler. Okay, so the next is semantic tags. Semantic tags means element with a meaning, and they describe about its content. A semantic element clearly describes about its a meaning to both the browser and the developer. For example, this form element, table, article, and there are some non-semantic element. They tells nothing about its content, as div and the span. These are not a semantic element or a non-semantic elements. Okay, then the block versus inline tags. HTML element has a default display value depending on what type of element it is. A block level element always start on a new line, and the browser automatically adds some spaces, for example margin, before and after the element. Block level element always takes up a full width, available full width, for example the div and paragraph. An inline element does not start on a new line. An inline element only takes up much width as necessary, for example span. Then we have web storages, local storage, and the session storage. Okay, web storages. Web application can store data locally within the user's browser. Web storage is a more secure and large amount of data can be stored locally. So currently at least 5 MB. This is the browser specific storage, uh, and we can store it without affecting the website performance. There are two types of storage: local storage and session storage. So the local storage stores data with no expiry date, and the session storage data is lost when browser tab is closed. So to store the data in a local storage, we use a set item method and we pass the key and the value. Then to retrieve local storage data, we use a get item method and we'll pass the key. To remove the specific item from a local storage, we use a remove item method and we'll pass the key. To clear the local storage, we'll use the clear method of a local storage. These set item, get item, remove item, and clear method is used with session storage also. Okay, then the tags versus element. HTML element is defined by start tag, some content, and an end tag. HTML elements can be nested. Tag is a part of element, and tags can be start tag and end tag. There are some wide element like BR tag. Then we have HTML entities. These are the reserved characters in HTML must be replaced with character entities. So if you use the less than character or greater than character in your text, like we have to the syntax for HTML entity is start with ampersand and ends with semicolon, and in between them we use the entity name. For example, we have this later than less than, and we have non-breakable space as we see here, and LT and NBSP. Okay, then multi-part form data. Multi-part slash form data is one of the most used ENC type or content type. When you make a post request, you have to encode the data that forms a body of a request. We have to use multi-part slash form data when your form includes any input type file element. For example, as a form attribute, we'll use enc type and the value will be multi-part slash form dash data. Then the types of a list. There are three types of a list: unordered list, ordered list, and a description list. So we'll use ul tag to define unordered list. We'll use ol tag to define ordered list, and we'll use the uh, list item using this li tag. Then we have description list. The tag is the description list for the tag. DL tag defines this description list, and we have two tags in description list: DT and DD. So the DT defines the description term, and the DD defines the description of a term in a description list. So while DD is renders on a web page, it uses the left padding. Okay, then HTML advantages. First, there are some advantages using the HTML5. First is cleaner markup and improved code. So for HTML5 will enable a web designer to use cleaner and neater code. We can remove div tags and replace them with semantic tag elements. So elegant forms. HTML5 enables designer to use fancier forms. There will be different types of input, search, different fields for different purposes. So previously we were using the input type text only, but now we have the email, number, text, URLs. We can search, we can have a search input. Then we have date, time, week, month. There are lots of input types they have introduced in HTML5, and we can use it in our forms. Then the consistency in terms of HTML used to code a web page on one site compared to another site. HTML5 supports rich media elements. It has inbuilt capability to play audio, video, and so we can say goodbye to those plugin tags. Then they have supported offline application cache. HTML5 offers an offline application cache facility which will load the page user has visited even if user is temporarily offline. Then we have audio and the video tags. We'll see it. Okay, audio tag is used to play an audio file in our web page, and video tag is used to show a video on our web page. For example, as we see here, we have rendered one audio tag which has uh, two embedded source tags. Audio tags have this controls, autoplay, muted attribute. Then in within our audio element we have wrapped two source tag as one text. This text says your browser does not support the audio element. This means if our browser does not support this audio element, it will render simply text, and if it supports the audio element, it will render the first source which is supported by that browser. So here some browser can support to OGG file, some browser can support to MP3 file. So if the browser is supported OGG file, it will run this file, and those browser will support only MP3 and not OGG, they will render this file. Okay, then the control attribute, as we have added this controls attribute, this will add the audio controls like play, pause, volume up and down. Then we have autoplay. We have added this attribute, and this autoplay attribute will start the audio automatically. Then we have muted. uh, when this muted attribute is present in audio, the audio will play in mute mode. Then we have the source elements, as we said earlier. When the browser supports OGG, it will play this file, or if not it doesn't support OGG and supports MP3, it will run MP3 file. Then in case of audio also, in case of video also, video has the same attributes and behaves same as a video. In addition, video has width and height attributes to render the video player size. So in same way, we'll have the controls, autoplay, muted, and height and width to the video, and we'll also have this bunch of source. So browser will play the supported video file, and if the video tag doesn't support for a browser, will just render your browser does not support the video element. Okay, so the next is a mark tag. This mark tag will mark the or highlight the text in a yellow background color. It works like the span with a yellow background color. Then we have figure and the figure caption. The figure element is to mark up a photo in a document, and the figure caption element to define a caption for the photo. As we see here, we have defined one figure element here. This figure element has a image and the figure caption as a nested tags. Image will responsible for rendering the image, and the figure caption, so the content of the figure caption will be rendered as image caption in this case. Then the next is the data list versus select. In a select, we have to select item from a given option. It has an option group tag to support the grouping, but in data list we can select option as well as we can enter any text, but the data list doesn't support option group. So select will have the select option and the option group. In a data list it will have data list and just options. We'll add one input in a data list. We'll see the data list. We have to create one input having a list attribute. This list attribute value will be the id of a data list. So data list will have the data list and the option tags. For example, we have created one data list here. We have created one input text, and the list attribute will point to the id of a data list. As we see here, it is pointing the gender, which is the id of a data list element. And in a data list we have two options. In this way, we can select the option from here, or we can enter a new value from this input. It will get added to the data list and it will select. Okay, then we have meter and progress. So the progress is used to convey how much work in a task has been completed. The meter element is used to display a measurement on a known scale. We can think that progress value will be dynamic and it will change as per the progress of a task. The meter is used to show static values of scales like disk uses. So the meter has a mean and the max value. As we see here, we have declared two meter elements. One has id disk C, second has a disk D. We have added the value 2. It has a mean and the max, and we are saying that 2 out of 10. As we have max 10 and the mean 0, the value is 2. Then we can say like the 60% is a field, and we have added the value 0.6. Okay, these two elements look like same, but their purposes are different. HTML graphics is supported via SVG and the canvas elements. We can render different types of graphics on a web page. So then make the image responsive. We use the height auto and the width 100% or fixed value. In this way we can make the image responsive. Also we can use a max width property and the height auto. So what are the media elements in HTML5? So audio, video, embed, source and track, these are the media related elements in HTML5. Object versus embed. So both embed and the object tags are used to load external plugin content, but the embed is deprecated now. Embed is and embed uses the src attribute for multimedia data, and the object uses data attribute for multimedia data. So the both takes the height and width, both takes type to define the type of data or source file. So to load a PDF file using the object, we'll use this syntax object tag, and we'll give the attribute type, which is the application PDF. Data will take the URL to load the data, then height and the width of this object tag, and to download the PDF we'll add one link to download that PDF. Or we can load a YouTube video. As we see here, we have assigned width and height to the object element, and the data attribute will take the URL of YouTube video. Okay, then no validate attribute. When it present in a form, it specifies that the form data should not perform HTML validation when submitted the form. Then we have no script element. No script HTML element defines a section of HTML to be inserted if a script tag on a page is unsupported. The script type on a page is unsupported, or if scripting is currently turned off in the browser. So suppose the user turned off the JavaScript in a browser, the no script tag will render the text in between them. Okay, then the next is polyfills. A polyfill is a piece of code, or we can say a plugin, that provides a technology that the developer expect the browser to provide natively. Okay, then we have iframes. Iframe tag specifies an inline frame. This is used to embed another document within the current HTML document. So the src attribute, src doc attribute, and the height and width attribute of iframe. The src attribute specifies the URL of that document. If you want to render some HTML code in our iframe, we'll use the src doc attribute and we'll pass the HTML string to that. Then we have height and width attribute to specify the size of iframe. So while playing the YouTube video via HTML multimedia, we can append few query parameters to the YouTube URL for specific purpose, like muted equal to 1 will mute the YouTube video, autoplay equal to 1 will start playing while the video is rendered on a page. Okay, for progressive web app, we use the manifest.json file and the servers worker.js file. In a manifest file, we store the name, short name, icons, start URL for the application, and in a service worker file, we'll cache the resources. So this is just an overview of the progressive web app. Then we have a geolocation API in HTML5. So HTML5 API, geolocation API is used to locate the user's position. User should approve the location access because the location is the privacy of the user. We'll check if the browser is supports to the geolocation using the navigator.geolocation. So this will return the true or false, true if the browser supports for geolocation API. Then we have get current position method to get the current coordinates of a user. We will use the navigator.geolocation get current position and will pass one callback function. This callback function, as we see here, we have written one callback function, show position. This function will take the position which has a chords object, and chords object contain the latitude on the and the longitude of the user. So as we see here, navigator.geolocation API, it has a get current position to get current coordinates of user. It has a watch position. This method is used to watch current coordinates as a user moves. As you see here, navigator.geolocation.watch position and will pass callback function. This will render the latitude and the longitude as the users move. We will clear watch to stop the accessing the current position of a user. as we see here, navigator dot geolocation dot clearwatch. Okay, as we said, these get current position and the watch position takes one callback function. This callback function will take the position object, and this position have chords property, which contains the latitude and the longitude of user. Okay, then we have new input types in HTML5. As you see here, in HTML5 added new input types to record the data from user. So the input type color, input type date time dash local, input type email, input type month, input type number, range, search, telephone, tel, the time, URL, week. So these are the new input types in HTML5 forms. Okay, then we'll see drag and drop. In HTML, any element can be dragged and dropped. So this draggable true attribute and the on drag start event on we write it on draggable item, and on drop container we'll write the on drop event and on drag over method, on drag over event. So to make the element draggable, we use draggable attribute and the value will be true. In this way we enable the uh, item, we make the item draggable. Then we set the data when drag start event occurs. As we see here, on drag start we'll register one event, drag, and we'll pass the event. As we see here, we have written the event handler drag and taking the event, and we'll access the ID of the uh, drag start event element. Okay, we'll set to the element dot event dot data transfer dot set data, and we'll set it as a text, and the value is ID. Then in a droppable element, droppable container, drag over event occurs. uh, so we'll register allow drop event on drag over. As we see here, we have written this function, and we will just make the event prevent default to stop the its default execution, and on drop event when the drop completes. uh, as we see here, we have will register on drop event on drop container by calling this drop function, and we'll pass the event. As we see here, we'll just stop the default execution, and then we'll get the data which is set at the time of uh, drag start. Event dot data transfer dot get data and the text. So this property will get, it will give us a ID data, and will append the child to the event dot target, means the drop container, and we'll append the child to drop container, and we'll get the element using the this data ID. So property draggable, to make the drag enable for item, on drag start event will set the data transfer property of the event, and will set data and the property and the value of the identity of the source element. Then on drop handler and on drag over handler. Okay, Okay, then next is a formatting elements in HTML. User used to format the text without using CSS. We use the strong, small, em, del, sub, soup, and mark. These elements add some default styles to the element, but that too without using CSS. HTML tables has the table caption, t-head, t-body, row, t-head, sorry, column th, and the column td. The HTML responsive web design is about creating a web pages that look good on all devices. A responsive web design will automatically adjust for different screen sizes and viewports. To create a responsive site, add this meta tag in a head section of a web page. You see here meta tag name. It has the name content attribute. Value of the name should be viewport, and the value of the content will be width equal to device dash width comma initial scale 1.0. Then the HTML forms are used to collect the user inputs. We use the form tag to render a form on a web page. So it has some attribute, action attribute, target attribute, method, and the autocomplete attribute. So the action attribute defines the action to be performed when the form is submitted. Target attribute specifies where to display the response that is received after submitting the form. Then the method attribute specifies the HTTP method, that is get, put, post, delete, and so on, to be used when submitting the form data. Then the autocomplete attribute specifies whether a form should be autocomplete on or off. Uh, so the form tag uses the elements like input, select, label, text area, button, then yeah, that's it. Then HTTP status messages. So there are 5 types of status messages. Some of them starts with 1, some of them start with 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the messages start with 1 are the information, start with 2 are the operation successful, that is 200 is okay, to 201 is created. Then they start with 3 are for redirection. So there are some 308 for permanent redirect, 307 for temporary redirect. Then we have uh, HTTP status message starts with 4. These are to specify the client errors. For example, this 400 the bad request, 401 unauthorized, 403 forbidden, 408 request timeout, 404 not found. Then we have the status messages start with 5. These specify the server errors. We have seen that 500 internal server error, 502 bad gateway, 503 service unavailable, and 504 gateway timeout. So these are some HTTP status messages.